Hello everyone, and welcome to our new series, What?, where we answer the question, you guessed it, what? This series was created to answer frequently asked questions about the lore of Lorcana, or just things that don't fit into my regular lore videos. Some episodes may also have special theory segments called What If, where we dive into the unknown and speculate what may be coming or what something means, so keep an eye out for those. Today our question is probably the most asked question about Lorcana from a lore standpoint and a game standpoint to an extent. And that question is, what exactly are Glimmers? To start us off, we need to know what they are made of. So let's take a look at the process from the original trailer. We have Shanzai with her ink caster, tool number 1, and in front of her is the lore book, tool number 2. And then with the machinations of the Luminary, first of which is the Starcatcher that streams down the essence of the characters from Story Stars, ingredient number 1, putting them into the lore book. And from there, the other part of the Luminary is pulling the ink from the ink chambers, which is then channeled through the ink caster to bring the character out of the lore book and into existence as a Glimmer. So, Story Star to lore book, from lore book to existence as a Glimmer. Now wait, you ask, what is all this stuff that she just threw together to create Mickey Mouse? Not to worry, let's go over those in a bit more detail. The Illuminary and the ingredients and tools were discovered and created by the original Illumineer, known only as the Curator. We'll get into him and his story in more detail another time, but for now, know that he created this process and discovered and made the materials possible for producing Glimmers. Story Stars are the fragments of Disney stories from which Illumineers take inspiration from to create their Glimmers. For the ink casters, they come in all shapes and sizes and functions. However, there is a common feature among all of them, and that is there is some recess or slot that you can put in canisters of ink to determine what inks you'll be using for your Glimmers. Speaking of inks, what are they exactly? Well, these magical inks help determine what kind of character you're making, as each ink has several properties or personalities tied to them, if you will. Those of you long-term viewers and fans of Lorcana should know these well by now, so say it with me. Those created with amber ink are purposeful. Patient and dedicated, they're able to pursue causes and ambitions with single-minded persistence. They often work within communities either from above as a leader or from within as a healer, bodyguard, or just a loyal follower. Amethyst Glimmers are wondrous, for this is the otherworldly ink of sorcerers, sages, animated objects, and other Glimmers who use their special powers to achieve their aims. They are incredibly powerful when they have access to their amazing abilities, but they may land in trouble if they're stripped of those or tap into a power that they can't control. Emerald Glimmers are flexible. Gifted with the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, they are never caught off guard. Quick thinking but not necessarily book smart, they navigate their environment. Whether physical or social, natural or artificial. With these, Ruby Glimmers are daring. They use their speed and bravery to defy the odds. They are often warriors, explorers, and daredevils. Sapphire Glimmers are intellectual, intelligent, and creative. They excel at strategy, invention, and the arts. They can almost always know something, plan something, or invent something that will win the day. Steel Glimmers are strong, large and imposing, armored, or just plain powerful. Steel Glimmers can apply huge amounts of brute force to get the job done. So there you have it. How Glimmers are made. Oh? The different kinds of Glimmers. Of course, how could I forget? So you have the ones that are pulled directly from a story star. No modifications to them whatsoever. Well, that means the ink used and the character from the story star are matched. You have yourself a storyborn Glimmer. But let's say, as an Illumineer, you're like, I want to have a Gaston Glimmer. But instead of using Ruby, Amber, or Emerald that matches his usual traits of strength, leadership, and cunning, what if he was, for lack of a better word, smart? So you pull out your sapphire ink and whammo! You have yourself a Dreamborn. But the possibilities don't stop there. You can still use the ink that matches a character, like a canonical inventor like Maurice, and just crank it all the way up to 11 with sapphire ink to make him even more inventory. You get what I'm saying, right? There's a plethora of ways to come up with Dreamborn characters. They are only limited by the imaginations of the Illumineers that summon them. There is one final kind, however. Though in the lore of Lorcana, these are not summoned by Illumineers, but rather Glimmers that come into contact with a particular mixed ink concoction, commonly known as the Flood by modern Illumineers. Thus, these Glimmers are known as Floodborn. We'll go into more details on these Floodborn and the inks that make them in another video. So for now, know that the difference between Glimmers are Storyborn, Illumineer created Glimmer that was left unchanged from their story star, Dreamborn, Illumineer created Glimmer with an imaginative twist, and Floodborn, an already existing Glimmer coming into contact with the Flood. Now there is one last thing to tackle here, and it can't be quite a gruesome topic to talk about in front of Glimmers, and that is what happens when they are banished. Now in the game, they just go to the discard, but in the story and lore of Lorcana, we have witnessed both Ursula, Deceiver of All, and Ursula, the Sea Witch Queen, be banished. So what exactly happens to them? Well, turn your attention to this card here, Glimmer versus Glimmer. Hades confirms that Glimmers that are banished back to their lore book. So in the case of Sea Witch Queen, she was probably back in the lore book from where Martin accidentally summoned her, and the Deceiver of All to whichever lore book she came from. So I believe that the Glimmers may be able to be summoned again, if anyone wished, which is probably why that lore book was locked to begin with, which probably means there are even more Glimmers to potentially be discovered that were created by the original Illumineers, if we ever decide to go through the vast libraries of the Illuminary, that is. Well, that's all that I have for this question today. Next time we'll be going into Floodborns and how they came to be and what the exact nature of the Flood is. If you have any particular questions about the lore of Lorcana that you would like answered, feel free to ask them below and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the answer. And be sure to like the video so I know you all enjoyed this series and so I can continue it. Remember, ask about everything. It's how you learn.